Hello and welcome to the second part of the series about the flower festivals of Saint Lucia, La Rose and La Marguerite. So previously we discussed some of the origins coming out of the Enlightenment period with the influence of possibly African Dahomey, that Kopite from Haiti and so forth, and the idea that these flower festivals were secret societies giving the La Rose group of people, the La Marguerite group of people in Saint Lucia, the ability to have groups where they can debate ideas coming out of the Enlightenment period, a tumultuous time of revolutions and revolts. So right now for the second series we'll start looking at with the idea of that we know that slavery and Maroonage and revolution was taking place during that time. So let's look at that part of it starting now. So during the times of the French Revolution, the idea of liberté, égalité and fraternity, or French for liberty, equality and fraternity, influenced the black and mulatto population seeking their freedom, similar to the rights of whites who were seeking to move away from monarchy rule or serfdom into republican rule. This is well recorded as motivation for the slave rebellions of Haiti, that is the adherence to the philosophy of liberty, equality and fraternity, as Dessalines and some of the other revolutionaries were hearing or either reading of those things. They decided to take up arms and fight, just like the white Europeans were moving away or fighting against monarchy rules. So, for example, we know that there's some of the famous revolutions of the French Revolution we spoke about, and also the American Revolution, right? The movement away, Boston Tea Party, the movement away from England ruling the colonies of America. So the Enlightenment period before the French Revolution and during the French Revolution seemed to have played a big part with the philosophies and the thought and the ideas coming out of it. So they were anti-royalist factions, wanted to change from royal old regime rule away from serfdom to republican style rule. They were Jacobins, republican royalists, loyalists, philosophes, or philosophes, slaves, mulattoes, free black people. And they were also influenced by the idea of freedom and self-determination like everyone else. So imagine planning a revolt, uprising or slave rebellion in the islands or in the colonies. Imagine supporting one group or another, a monarchy or not a monarchy, or for republicanism or not, and you're a slave. But you didn't want to get caught, but needing to know who are friends of the cause and who are the enemies during these tumultuous times. It must have been very, very difficult. Then you can see the reason for secret societies and disguising them as celebrations, as innocent gatherings, even the idea of disguising these societies under the pretext of religious worship. During that time there were a lot of different type of religious worship where people were speaking in tongues, and shakers, for example, were happening. So right now, we're going to look at the prominent part of the two flower festival is based upon singing the virtues of the rose and the marguerite. So they have singers. Looking at this aspect of the festival, we realize that in the songs, there were messages and stories that were being told and passed on. So under the cover, the singers or the festival as there's going on, there's messages being passed on. So we look at the idea of the château, which is the central figure in this at the seances is the château, or lead singer, who sustains the spirit and tenor of the Enlightenment. Most groups have one outstanding château. They are usually female. Dame Marie Selphia Descat Nichalry is the better known as Cécile, was Saint Lucia's greatest La Rose singer and is a cultural icon. She sang in Saint Lucia's native patois language, Creole, even when authorities barred its use back in the day when the British was governing Saint Lucia. When Saint Lucia was ceded to the British and was being governed under the British rule, Creole and a lot of those cultures were banned and barred. Even the Catholic Church once banned and barred the flower festivals as well. In many of the songs, there is a main character that is sung about, and his name sounds like Wadlo, W-A-D-L-O, in Creole. But it's actually Wadelo, the king of the seas, okay? Which is most likely the king of England or the British monarchy. gives you an idea how the people use these gatherings and societies and songs to translate messages and declare allegiances, or one side or the other, support for one, or to deride and insult the opposition. And therein is the rivalry aspect of it, right? So during slavery, they communicated messages of revolt and rebellion, and enslaved people had to find ways of maroonage and rebellion that would not arouse suspicion, almost like using drums and gatherings and dances to give messages. So they were also, you know for a fact, that they were free land owning black people, indigenous people, monarchists, or those who supported the old regime rule. They were Republicans, or those that supported movement away from monarchical rule, away from feudalism to a new form of government. The American Revolution, like I said, is a big example. The French Revolution has ideas in it. And the area most heralded example of such revolutions and change of thought and the raising of arms. So these revolutions depicted and highlighted changing of thoughts and the raising of arms. They are royalists and loyalists. They were supposed who supported seated rulers, or Jacobins who supported pretenders, like it is said. Those that fought the wrong rulers were on the throne. So they were enslaved people in the middle of all of this in the Caribbean, in the Americas. And while oftentimes their roles and reactions and participation in this era of revolt and revolution is oftentimes overlooked or scarcely recognized, they were quite active in fighting for their freedom or for change, since they were most assuredly free black men and women, mulattoes, black Republicans, black monarchists, black loyalists, black thinkers as well. So they were definitely involved in the uprising that was going on. So we will move on and then look at the dressing up in elaborate clothing also conveys deep meaning. One possible meaning we shall explore is the idea of the philosophe. So if somebody said to you, you were philosophe in Saint Lucia, it meant that you were well dressed. But the philosophe idea coming out from the philosophers period out of the Enlightenment is quite important. So the third part, we will look at that. So see you then for the third part of the series of the Flower Festival of Saint Lucia, of La Rose and La Marguerite. See you soon.